Whether it is because of age, injuries, or departures in free agency, rebuilding is a natural process that most teams are forced to go through with the hope of finding talented enough players that are capable of guiding them to the promised land. However, not all rebuilds work out for the best, and as the Chicago Bulls have learned, a wrong coach can put an undesired ceiling on the development of players and hurt their chances of being competitive as a team. But now, after years of not living up to the expectations and failing to develop a winning culture, despite having a talented young roster, the organization has signed a new coach, hoping he'll be the one to help one of the most storied franchises become relevant once again. Welcome to Courtside. Today, we'll be talking about the hiring of Billy Donovan and whether he can be the one to finally take Chicago back into the playoffs. The Bulls are known by most people for their historic championship runs during the 90s, and while that's something to be proud of as an organization, it also says a lot about their success in the years that have gone by since then. Following their victory in the 1998 finals, they have been far from championship contenders for the better part of the last 2 decades and have missed the playoffs on 11 of the past 22 seasons. Their luck seemed to change in 2011 when Derrick Rose won the MVP and guided the team to the first seed in the Eastern Conference in back-to-back seasons. But a series of injuries limited his availability in the following years, and the team was never able to make it out of the second round again. By the conclusion of the 2016-17 season, after finishing with a mediocre record and being eliminated in the first round of the playoffs, the team decided it was time to start over again and build a roster around the recently acquired Zach LaVine. As would be expected, the team struggled in their first year under a new direction, but while there was some extra drama caused by fighting among some of the longest-tenured Bulls, there were hopes for the future as LaVine steadily recovered his form following a torn ACL, and Lauri Markkanen had an excellent rookie season. However, things would start to go wrong for them in the following season. Despite solid improvements from Markkanen and LaVine, injuries, multiple trades, and a coaching change made it hard for the Bulls to develop any kind of consistency, and their overall play got worse. Still, with the roster they had managed to put around their 2 young star players, and with enough time to create a good strategy, Chicago was one of the teams that people expected to have a breakout season, or perhaps even make it to the 2020 playoffs. But as the season started, the Bulls were hit by reality as they were once again one of the worst teams in the league. As the weeks went by, the broken relationship between coach Jim Boylen and his players became one of the most talked about stories for the team. Things even reached a point where the players were considering boycotting a practice session, according to reports. Boylen's system never meshed well with the players, and he became infamous for calling timeouts late into games where the results had already been decided. And when the season was resumed in Orlando, the team's record was not good enough for them to receive an invitation to the bubble. But not everything was bad for the team. LaVine continued to improve as a scorer, and rookie Kobe White had an excellent season. And in the months that followed the suspension of the season, Bulls fans would finally have a reason to celebrate. General Manager Gar Forman was fired in April, and Vice President of Basketball Operations John Paxson was reassigned to an advising role. The duo had been at the front of the team for the better part of the last 2 decades, and many thought they should have been let go a long time ago. The moves were followed by the firing of Boylen in August, and his replacement, Billy Donovan, would sign a contract with the team just over a month later. Donovan, a New York native, had a college basketball career and a short pro career as well before starting his coaching career in the NCAA. Known for his time as the head coach for the University of Florida, he had a successful run with the Gators during his 19-year tenure as he guided the team to back-to-back NCAA championships in 2006 and 2007 and became the winningest coach in the program's history. During his time there, other programs and NBA teams tried to recruit him, and he even accepted an offer from the Orlando Magic in 2007 before backing out of it. And it wasn't until 2015 that he would finally accept a head coaching position in the NBA, this time with the Oklahoma City Thunder. Donovan had a mostly successful run with the Thunder, accumulating a 243-157 record throughout 5 regular seasons and leading his team to the playoffs every time. However, he wasn't able to get the most out of his players during the postseason. In the 2016 playoffs, OKC reached the conference finals and was matched against the defending champion Golden State Warriors, but despite going up 3-1 in the series, they couldn't close the Warriors out and were eliminated in Game 7. The loss was followed by the departure of superstar Kevin Durant, which changed the team's plans for the future as they shifted their focus towards Russell Westbrook and eventually Paul George, too, but were eliminated in the first round in 3 straight seasons. Now, while it's clear that the Thunder was unable to live up to the expectations in 2018 and 2019, you can look at it from 2 different standpoints. On the one hand, you could say that Donovan failed to adapt his system to get the most out of his team's stars and that George, Westbrook, and Carmelo Anthony couldn't figure things out in time to lead the Thunder to a deep playoff run. On the other, you could argue that the constant changes to the team's roster from year to year made it impossible for the coaching staff to effectively adapt their system and for the players to develop a good rhythm. Both stances would be right to some degree, but then the 2019-20 season came around to present Donovan with a completely different situation, and to the surprise of most people, his team overachieved and had a winning record once again. After trading away George and Westbrook in the 2019 offseason in exchange for Chris Paul, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Danilo Gallinari, and multiple future draft picks, most people predicted the Thunder wouldn't be able to remain competitive and would miss the playoffs. And while the season had a rough start for the team, they started to figure things out by December and became one of the most dangerous teams in the West on the way to securing the 5th seed in the conference. They were again eliminated in the first round of the playoffs, but were just a shot away from upsetting the Houston Rockets in Game 7 and advancing to the second round for the first time since 2016. The success of the team garnered praise for both Paul and Donovan, and the latter was named as the Coaches Association Coach of the Year and finished third in voting for the league's award. So it's no surprise that the Bulls expressed their interest in him as soon as it was announced he would not return to the Thunder. His experience and winning history could make a difference for the young team, as well as his ability to establish relationships with his players. Among the many things that a head coach has to deal with is managing the egos of players. And the fact that Donovan has already coached 5 of the league's most renowned stars successfully will help him earn the respect of LaVine, Markkanen, and the rest of Chicago's roster. Most importantly, he might be able to unlock their full potential by simplifying the coaching for the team. Aside from the way Boylen failed to connect with his players, most people question the way he took them out of their spots and forced them to settle for three-pointers. Both LaVine and Markkanen have a deep repertoire of mid-range moves, but the fact that their former coach tried to make them stop taking those shots made the Bulls more predictable on offense and also made the players feel frustrated. Most of Chicago's young players are not excellent three-point shooters, but the fact that some of them were forced to turn into spot-up shooters is part of the reasons why their play regressed. But Donovan has already said he wants the Bulls to be themselves and has a good history of incentivizing his players to take mid-range shots. During his time with the Thunder, the team was always among those that attempted the least amount of three-pointers in the league. And while that would seem counterintuitive given the way the game's played today, it was probably a result of the players he had. Durant, Anthony, George, and Paul have always relied on their mid-range game to create offense for their teams, and knowing that this was one of his stars' greatest strengths, Donovan didn't try to change the way they scored. And if he keeps that trend during his time in Chicago, his new team's offense might see the benefits of LaVine and Markkanen playing to their full potential, which could become a problem for opposing teams. Another area where his expertise should be useful is in assigning roles. Aside from Zach and Laurie, the Bulls have Wendell Carter Jr., Otto Porter Jr., and Kobe White on the roster, and they're all players capable of having a great scoring number on any given night. But if the team wants to be successful, it will need to address who will be in the main scoring options going forward. It shouldn't be too much of a problem given that LaVine and Markkanen have already been in that role before, but taking into consideration that the younger players will want to show themselves out from time to time, it'll be important that everyone buys in on their roles. In any case, it's not probable that the Bulls turn into an elite team overnight, but the opportunity for them to make steady improvements is there. And if they make the most out of it, they should be in the conversation for a playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. And considering that only the Knicks have been worse than them over the last 3 years, it should be safe to say that they have nowhere to go but up in the standings. But only time will tell. Overall, Chicago has been among the most mediocre teams in the league since its 90s dynasty ended. And that has been especially true during the last decade, but barring any major injuries, they may finally be able to enjoy some sustained success in the following years. The core is a very talented one, and while many of its players are still raw talent, they should all get better under Donovan's direction. If they do, there's no reason to believe this team can't start making some noise in the East. But now, do you think Billy Donovan will be the key to start an era of success in Chicago? Or will the Bulls continue to be stuck in mediocrity? Let us know in the comments. We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, remember to like it and subscribe to our channel for more NBA content, because we are Courtside.